Next level. Next level.
All right, so we went from okay to crappy stream health, apparently, is what I got right now. So I don't want to jump right into this until we know that we have a smooth upstream going on here. Otherwise, it's just going to be torture to watch. So I do have something, though, that I thought was interesting. And one of the things that we run into a lot of times is that we want to be able to turn a phone on to test it, but you don't want to have to put it all the way together to get the button to connect, so you can hit the power button. So in some situations, there are alternative ways to make the phone boot up. You know, with an iPhone, for example, you just plug in the charge port. That's going to turn the phone on. And with a lot of other phones, including iPhones, you can bridge the connection together, Galaxy, anything else between where the lock or power button is to ground somewhere. But the thing is, you have to know where that is. And a lot of times, it's not really obvious. And, you know, we don't necessarily have a board view or a schematic for a lot of the stuff that's out there. So I was going to show you my method for determining what that is, because it's just a lot of work, especially with certain types of phones. So again, I'm just going to hang out here for a second, everyone. I will get started shortly. As long as everything looks smooth on that end. I know the lighting's a little funny right now, and I think we can probably maybe fix that with this. We'll see here if that brightens it up a little bit. But how's everyone doing? Ion Trone, Google should be revealing the Pixel 3 budget during this live stream. I would be in favor of that. That'd be cool. Yeah, Google doesn't check with me on that kind of stuff. What's up, Richard? We got Nate's Tech Services in the house, and let's see how this is looking. Guys, tell me if this looks choppy on your end, because on my monitor it seems okay, but for whatever reason YouTube wants to tell me that the quality is terrible. So I don't know if that means anything or not. Looks good there. Okay, as long as you guys can see it, we'll go ahead, because I didn't want to make this super long. And I'm hoping that I can show you something that'll be helpful, and with any luck, we might get this water damaged LG back into good enough shape that we can get some data off of it, which is, oftentimes going to be what the customer is interested in. So let's move over here real quick to the microscope. Don't want to look at that just yet. What I wanted to show you was this. So if you have worked on LGs before, and specifically this model, the thing that's a pain about it is that because the power button is on the back side of the phone, if you want to be able to turn it on, you've got to figure out a way to make that happen when you're doing testing. And it's not obvious which one of these is going to turn it on because we've got all sorts of different contacts here. And, there's going to be just one of these. Let's see if we can focus here a bit. So just two of these pads are part of the circuit that turns the phone on. I know a lot of you already know this stuff, but for anyone who doesn't, what we want to be able to do is click on this button here on the back of the phone and close that circuit that tells the phone to turn on. And again, without having, kind of a roadmap to show us where those are, we need to figure that out. So I've done this quite a few times before with other phones, and I thought I would share this with you because it's relevant to what we're working on today. So I'm going to put on some gloves because this is a liquid damaged phone. Now the story is that it went into, or it was at a beach actually, with salt water. So it did get wet, and these my glove, I just destroyed my glove. It did get wet, most likely with salt water. When I first took it apart, there was, obvious signs of corrosion all over the place. The phone was not booting, it was not charging, it was doing some very strange things when I hooked it up to the Porta-Pal. And you can hook this up to a power supply, but with no signs of life on it, I wanted to just kind of be very careful and look around and see what I could observe. And it wasn't too hard to find because there was so much damage on it, and it looks much better now. So I want to show you the after. And obviously what I had to do here was go in and take off a few shields. Some of them you can just pull right off. And there was one right here. Oh, can we get focused? This is kind of tricky to do with the delay here. Okay, so this shield right here is actually welded onto the motherboard. So this one you've got to heat off. The rest of them just kind of pop off. And I know it looks decent now, but if you take a look like right here, you can see this little inductor here and quite a few other components on the board were in very bad shape. So it did go through the ultrasonic cleaner because, I'll show you down. This is such a goofy system too because they've got this battery that is on this little deal, that slides into the bottom of the phone. So it's kind of a unique design, if you want to say that. Over here, you can see that this doesn't look too good, but I was getting voltage in the phone. So it looked like there was power getting inside here. I didn't see that there was anything drawing a significant amount of power. So there's no heating, none of the phone was getting hot. It just wasn't turning on. And the first thing I really wanted to do was get it cleaned up. But again, before I did that, I started poking around a bit and just looking at the areas that were, obviously water damaged. And it's just amazing what the ultrasonic cleaner does with this thing because it was just covered with corrosion. I know you guys have seen pictures of things that are really messed up. This looked terrible when I got it. So I did happen to notice, though, that right over here, let's see. Nate, you see what's on my microscope? I was talking yesterday about all these black spots. They're not on the camera. See how they're staying in one place? Some of these are moving, but some of them are stationary, and those are the ones that are in the lens. So I've contacted Amscope, and they never got back to me like they said they would. So hopefully I'll hear from them today. But back to what's going on here. So right over here, for some reason, you can see that we're looking at a Qualcomm PM8996, which is interesting because I want to say that the Galaxy had a P8998, if I remember correctly. So same manufacturer, obviously, just a very slightly different chip here that we're looking at. And for whatever reasons, let me get my pointer here. This guy right here, which I couldn't tell you what it does, because again, we don't have a schematic or anything really for these to tell us what they do. But this one had extremely low resistance to ground, and I did happen to have a donor board, basically acquired one, and confirmed that that was not the correct specs for that particular line, whatever that ended up being, which is also connected to these capacitors over here. So again, just kind of trying to figure out like, what is this? And without having any roadmap, no way to tell. without the presence of any heat or any obvious signs of why this thing would have a low resistance to ground. I cross my fingers and I hope that if I put it in the ultrasonic cleaner, maybe there's something that's slightly bridged. Maybe there's a bit of corrosion somewhere between two surfaces that's causing it not to go completely to ground, but partially. And in fact, I got lucky, and this is definitely not the rule. This is kind of the exception, but ran it through the ultrasonic cleaner, and now if I said resistance, excuse me, because I did check in diode mode. So the diode mode numbers match what my donor board looks like at this point. So putting this through the ultrasonic cleaner seems to have removed something that was causing it to be partially shorted to ground on that particular line. Again, not sure exactly what that line is, but I was able to get the phone to power up after the ultrasonic cleaning. The only catch is the touchscreen does not function. And I was pretty sure that there was going to be some issue with the display or the touch function by looking at the connector before I started the repair. And so the thing is, this is not by default set to connect to a USB. So you plug it in and it charges the phone, but the computer's unable to communicate with the phone because you have to go in and pull the drop down thing from the top and tell it to go into the correct settings so that it can communicate and transfer multimedia from the computer to back and forth to the phone. So I'm this close. I'm really close on this one, but there's one more step that we need to be that needs to be taken here, and I know this is why. Well, I shouldn't say I know, but I'm fairly confident this is why. So when I was inspecting this for damage, I did notice here on this connector we had quite a bit of corrosion. And this is the display connector. Probably looks familiar. We had heavy corrosion right about here. So I went in and I really scrubbed this down because there's not a lot of damage you can do really in this area. And there's at least one of these pins, which I'll point out in a second, that is not making contact. Hey, what's up, Dave Hammerton? Greg. Cool. Hey, good to see you guys. Yeah, where have I been? Well, I've been here. I've been working, and I've been actually getting ready to launch a micro soldering training program, and that has taken up quite a bit of my time. It's also been quite busy, and I've been experiencing some challenges with YouTube and with getting my equipment set up so that I can just sit down and live stream, because it was a big headache before. So I won't go too far into the details, but I'm certainly not retiring from YouTube, at least not yet. So hold on one second. Bad time for a phone call. Okay, so if you take a look right here, let's see if we can get this thing focused, because again, it's tricky to do these, and then it gets all dark if we zoom in too far. But hopefully you can see that there is one pretty bad looking area on this connector, and that is going to be excuse me, right over here. So is it there or is it there? I think it's number 3. Okay, so this pin is not connected at all, and the unfortunate thing is that I'm fairly convinced this has got to handle touch, because that's the function that we're missing right now. I'm hoping that's going to be the case. And again, without having much to go on, it's hard to say for sure, because you can see that some of these pins, you can read the traces and you can tell exactly where they go. So my assumption is that these are going through, you can see that they're going through these, which function as some sort of filter, possibly for image, maybe for some other data, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm really hoping, and again, after going through all these pins and seeing that all of them are still connected, some of them we can figure out where they go, but even with the donor board, you'd have to just kind of guess and start probing around all over the place to figure out where this one specific pin goes. So I'm hoping we can reattach it to the board, because if the footing underneath the pin is gone, then it's going to be very time consuming to try to figure out where that line goes, because there's nothing obvious on the board that's showing us where that is. So again, fingers crossed. Let's see if we can get the lighting right on this thing, Mike. There we go. Okay, so that's a little better, right? So what we're going to do here is, and I kind of skipped ahead of myself because I was talking about turning this phone on earlier, right? So let's do that first, and then we'll come back and see if we can get this pin connected and turn the phone on long enough to get data recovered. Now, what I was getting at earlier, which I think that some of you might find useful, hopefully. So if you look at the back of this, because this is where this plugs into the power, and there are a lot of ways to make some phones boot but sometimes it's not convenient to plug it in, or that won't actually turn the phone on, so you've got to have a different way of hitting that power button. And putting the phone all the way back into the housing and holding it down in place and pushing this power button every time you want to test something, just kind of a waste of time, right? Going to take too long. So how does this thing work? As most of you have already guessed by now, you press the button, and whatever it is that is connected to ground in this area is then going to close the circuit to the probably 1.8 volt line that tells the phone to wake up or lock the screen or turn it on and off, right? So what we have to do is some fairly simple deduction here, I think is the correct term. And if you have a multimeter, it's not too tough really. So if we take a look here on the board, and we see that we've got all these pins that interface with the back panel where the power button is located. If we take our multimeter in continuity mode, we want to determine which of these pins go directly to ground, because we know that one side of that switch is going to be on ground, right? So if we just put a probe somewhere close by that's on ground, and we start going around here and just touch these till we get a beep, we find out that this is one of the ones that goes to ground, right? So the second question is, what does that have to connect to? We know where our ground connection is going to be. Where's the other side of the line that is being routed to, or is making that connection to ground when we hit that power button on the back? And of course, I'm sure that lots of you are way ahead of me at this point, but the answer is this. If we have, and I want to put this on the camera here so that hopefully you can see it a little better. I'll have to turn the light down a bit. So if we know that pushing this button is going to make two of these things connect, then all we have to do is figure out where our ground is connected, which we've already done. Okay, so we already know that if we put a probe right here, which matches up with where it is ground on the motherboard, and we make this awkward maneuver of pressing this button on the back at the same time. And I'll say that if you have a third hand, it would be very helpful, because this is kind of a pain to do. But if you hold it just right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold one probe here, and it doesn't matter which one, obviously. But what we're going to do is have our button pressed down. Let's see, can we get this so you can see it? I think it's awkward enough to start with, but I'm really going to try to do this in a way that you guys will be able to see what I'm talking about. How about this? Okay, so if we have one probe here, yeah, it's even harder doing this on camera. Okay, so we've got one probe here, and if you wanted to, if you got frustrated with it, you could solder something permanently to make this happen. But I'm going to hold that probe right on that pin, and you still can't see it, can you? What if we do this? What if we go this way? Where are we? Okay, here we go. So if I put this, and I am pressing the home button, I keep saying home button. I'm pressing the power button on the back. We're going to get one probe, hopefully. Actually, is this connected to this? Nope, it's not. Okay, so it has to be on that silly little pad. Like I said, this is way more awkward to do on camera. I mean, and it's awkward to start with. So what we're planning to do here, what just happened here? Okay, I'm going to have one of these over here. And then I'm going to start probing around, and you'll get to see me struggle with this. Okay, this is almost impossible, I think, to do on camera without a third hand. So you'd probably want to, if it was giving you trouble. You see what I'm getting at here, though, guys, is if we hold one of these here and we go around with the button depressed, or let's do this first, okay? Are any of these connected? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, look at that. So here's something interesting that happened to me yesterday. I pushed on this button enough times that it kind of got stuck. So I kind of lucked out just now, because these two, here and here, do not connect. Did you hear the beep a second ago? The beep happened because the button got stuck on the back, which I probably was probably just good fortune. So anyways, what I'm getting at is if you can hold that button down on the back side of this panel, get one probe over here where we know our ground is, and I really lucked out because that button is so sticky. It might do it again, it might not. This is really tough to do watching a monitor. But if it sticks down and we go through and we can eliminate any of these that aren't a part of the circuit when it's closed, and then ultimately find out that this right here is the one that we need. And the reason this is important is because now, if I go back over here and I want to power this thing up or tell it to boot up, all I need to do is get my tweezers and bridge basically this guy right here to ground. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to go to this one over here. You know, you could put it probably on this. You could put it on this little outline here, because these will generally go to ground. And if you bridge this connection, you can tell this thing to turn on. So for me, that was a big time saver, not having to put this all the way back into the housing and see if anything was happening on the screen. And the cool thing is the same rule applies to this type of connection no matter what kind of phone you have. So if you've got a Galaxy, if you've got LG, anything that uses these little springy pins, all you have to do is determine which one on the switch itself is going to be connected together when you press the button. So that's what I was getting at with all this. Although it's a little, like I said, you know, a little tougher than it seems. Hey, what's up, Caesar? More content for your channel. That is my goal. Hey, what's up, Harvey? Yeah. So here's is the screen cable intact? So here's the thing, Harvey. The screen actually turns on. I have a donor screen here, and even when I put that board in my donor phone, I still have the same problem. So yeah, that was my first thought also, and thank you for pointing that out. Obviously, if there's a problem with the screen and we start trying to do a repair on the motherboard, we're wasting time, right? So that was one of the things that I wanted to rule out early on. So having the donor available made that possible. Another interesting thing about this phone is that the charging system is not functioning. So even though when I plug the phone into the computer and it says, go ahead and hit your USB option so that you can transfer data, even though I'm unable to initiate that process, the computer is recognizing something going on between the phone and the USB connector, but it does not charge when I plug it in. So again, if I take my charged battery and put it into my donor phone, you know, I have unlimited charges available basically because of that. Now I have a universal charger I could use also. And ultimately we could use a power supply, but when I put this thing together and plug it into the computer and start transferring data, I really don't like relying on tiny little clips that are connected to a couple, you know, little pieces on the battery terminal. Theoretically, you could do that. I mean, it would work. But I would rather be able to put the phone kind of somewhat together, plug it in, and start the data transfer process. Now the question is going to be, if we can get the display connector working so that we have touch functionality, will the USB-C, excuse me, will the communication between that and the computer work? I don't know that. That's the thing that I don't know the answer to. The second thing I don't know the answer to. So can we fix this connector? And if we do, will this phone communicate with the computer? And I'm hoping that it will, because if it doesn't, then I've got a lot of time into this for no good reason, and you guys will be disappointed at the anticlimactic finish of this video. So, you know, the bottom line is we really don't know. Nothing's 100%. I guess that's the adventure of repair, right? So for some reason, my focus is way different than what yours is. So first, let's get this in a board holder, because we do want it to be stable, and we're going to see if we can touch up that connector. And if not, that's going to present a problem, because I don't know where that pin goes, and it could be very time consuming to try to track it down. So if someone at LG would start releasing some schematics, that would be great, but probably will never happen. And I have an interesting theory about that. If you guys notice that we get schematics for Apple products one way or another, usually. We get schematics for some Samsungs, but not a lot. You know, we don't always get a lot of the details on the newer phones, nor do we get much for LG, but we get stuff for a lot of other phones. And what seems to be consistent is most of the phones that we get, detailed information for are the ones that are manufactured in China, and not so much things that are coming from South Korea. So I wonder why that is. You know, how that works exactly. Are people just more likely? Are the controls much looser in China and much tighter in Korea? Certainly seems that way. South Korea, anyways. Okay, so here's what we got. This dude right here, I'm hoping, is going to be able is going to be salvageable. Okay, I think you guys have about as clear of a view as I do. Probably better because my eyes are not too good. There we go. Okay, so now I think we can both see what's happening. So let's come in and find out. Oh, I thought I turned that off. Let's get a bit of flux down in here. Like I said, I've cleaned this up pretty well. That's a big mess. It's more than I needed. But better too much than too little. We need a soldering iron, probably some hot air. Let me put this on silent real quick. Okay, probably some hot air, and we're going to have to clean this up. Fume extractor. And I think we can get in here with these tweezers. We'll find out in a minute. Get some fresh solder. All right, now how much do we need? That is the question. And as you can see, this is a pretty tight little space to be working in, so I'm hoping although I'm skeptical about these transferring enough heat, so we might have to do this a different way. Okay, let's see if we can get both of these in there at once without making a big mess. This is the tricky part. I like these tweezers, but they don't transfer a lot of heat for obvious reasons, so let's see if we can just get this dude. Man, I don't know if that footing is even there. Really hoping that it is. Alright, let's see if that's stuck, because it looks like there's something there. Only way to know for sure is, does this thing wiggle? And okay, I think we're on. I think that might work. Let's see, Q-tip. Maybe smaller Q-tip. Okay, this should do it. So how are we looking? Yeah, I don't know why it gets so dark. I guess it just can't get enough exposure here. Okay, I think we're good here. Let's see. Whoa, Chev P. Wow. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I don't get super chats too often, and I don't ask for them, but I do appreciate them, so thank you. Let's see. Thanks for waking me up at 2:15 a.m. Well, what were you doing sleeping at 2:15, Wayne? Jeez. The best starter set. I'm doing my first iPhone TriStar repair. The best starter set. Oh, boy. To do a TriStar, you know, I'd say what phone? Which phone are you doing it on? Because that would make a difference. Still, I think that if you take a look at my micro soldering tools video, which I don't have the link to, I can pull it up a little bit later. If you're not wanting to spend a lot of money, and this is a legitimate question I get quite often, I would say, guys, that, you know, don't go cheap on your hot air. And I believe that most people agree that right now the best value for the money is going to be the Quick 861DW. I believe that in the long term, you'll be happy that you bought that. Now, you can buy a combination soldering station, hot air, rework station for probably about $100-$150, and they're okay. But I don't think I would recommend that anymore unless you're doing like maybe just micro USB ports or something like that. When you get into something like TriStars, you need to be able to touch up those pads, and you need good, consistent heat. So Hakko actually makes a relatively affordable soldering station that does use this same type of cartridge system. It doesn't support the micro tweezers, but I'm confident that most people can survive without those, including myself. So I want to say it's the FX951, maybe? iPhone 7. Yeah, so, oh boy. So 7 is going to be partial. Yeah, it's going to be fun. You're going to need hot air for sure. You're going to need a very small, very hot soldering iron tip to get underneath the edge on that thing, because you've got to kind of lift it up and to the side and out. So I want to say it's the FX951, but let me check real quick here. And or if any of you guys know off the top of your head, if that, or is it the 888? It's one of these. FX 888D. Okay, my mistake. It is the Hako FX 888D, and I'm fairly confident that if you're going to be doing phone repairs, is it the triple? No, it's not. I'm sorry, that was the wrong one. So that's the one that has the old screw-on type of connector. What is the model on that one? I think it's a 951. Help me out here, guys. Which one is it? Because you definitely don't have to spend like $500 on a soldering station. Use quick and micro hot air quick TR 1100. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, so I want to say it's this one, Hako FX 951, and that'll run you about $250. But I'm confident that spending $250 on this is way better than spending $150 on those combo stations that have like the hot air rework built into them. That's just my opinion. But I think that most people will agree with that. Yeah, 951. So the 951 Hako, and get the quick. You're going to love it. I mean, this thing is programmable. It's consistent. It lasts. I've been using the same one for like 2 years now. That would be my recommendation. You can get one of those less expensive hot air stations, but you're probably going to have a hard time buying it when you decide to or selling it if you decide to upgrade. That's my take on it. If you can. For something like TriStar, you really need to have some pretty decent equipment, and you're going to want to get into other things that are going to require you to have consistent heat. So in my opinion, that's probably the best way to go if you don't want to spend a ton of money, and that's really kind of the budget range for decent soldering equipment. But it gets the job done. All right, so let's see what's happening here. I have a screen. Let's see. I guess I'll use my screen just to be sure, because we know this one works. And would it be better if I give you this view right here? Okay, maybe, so you guys can see a little more about what's going on. And all we want to know is whether or not we have restored touch functionality, because if we have, I'm going to partially assemble this phone and hook it up to the computer so we can get the data. That's the plan. So let's take our battery, which we know is charged, and I'm just going to kind of set it into place here. I'm going to be holding this thing down. I'm going to put a couple screws in here just to kind of stabilize the board inside of the frame. But the reason that I really don't want to fully assemble this phone is because with the G5, you have to pop the screen off from the front, and it's not difficult, but it just makes me feel like you're risking more than you need to, because you've got to lift this thing, you've got to lift this out of the back of the housing, and it does take a little effort, and I don't think I would break it, but it would be very unfortunate if I did. So I've only got one test screen on hand, and I want to make sure that it keeps working. So in order to get this thing to turn on, we are going to, let's switch back here really quick. We're going to go over here to this side where these little pins are, and remember what we want to do is just bridge, basically get this guy to go to ground, and that should tell it to turn on. So I'm going to put some tension on the battery so it stays inside the frame. See if we can get a slightly better focus here for you. Okay, and if we go from here, we should be able to go from here, should be ground, over to here. This is always awkward. Just touch that for a couple of seconds, and with any luck, we have an LG logo on the screen. So I'll switch back here. Is this better? Yeah, this is kind of a terrible camera. I'm just going to do it up here so you guys can see. So this isn't new. It was prompting after I went and put it through the ultrasonic. It would boot up. I did have an image, but not having touch was a problem, and it may be a problem with these gloves too. But I've got my fingers crossed, because this will be the first time I can see if this thing's going to do anything or not. And hopefully there's nobody's pictures on the front. I don't think that there is. I think there's like a dog or something. I don't think I saw any people, but let me make sure. Okay, so we have this. We have our little splash screen, and we have touch. Oh, it does have some pictures on here. So let me change screens because obviously... Okay, so I do actually, oh, and I went to the camera. That was brilliant. Let's go somewhere that doesn't have somebody's information. But long story short, let's close the camera. Let's close the gallery. Well, let's close the contacts. Well, guys, there's a whole bunch of people's pictures on here. So I don't think they'll be upset if you see their dog. There's a picture of their dog, but we definitely have touch working on here. So the next question is, if we plug this into the computer, are we going to get anything? And I think for this purpose, I'm going to need this port. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect. And you know, the thing is, you guys can't see if I don't have a screen capture, can you? Shoot. How can we do this? Can we do a screen display capture here? Let's see, what is on my display? Let's try this. I would like to be able to show you. Okay, so that works. So we don't need the chat. What we need to do is just for you to be able to see somewhere in here maybe that we've got a connection. I think it'll show up here, hopefully. So let's grab a USB-C. And I'm still holding tension on the battery, so yeah, I'm not really doing this the easy way, but when you make videos, sometimes that happens. So let's see if we can get this dude connected over here. It's always awkward plugging things in with one hand, but I just ordered a USB switch, which I'm thinking is going to be very helpful. You can just press a button and it turns the USB on and off. So if you want to prompt something, if you want to plug into something or whatever, that should do the trick. Okay, so I don't know if this is going to show up on my screen capture. If it does, it should be right around here, and if not, I don't know, you may have to take my word for it, but hopefully this is going to connect to the computer and tell me that I can, it's going to ask me to, whoa, what just happened? Did I just crash? We're having trouble connecting. Make sure your device is unlocked and that you accept the notification. Okay, so USB, tap to charge USB options, file transfer, always. Okay, and now what? Try again. And it says looking for new photos and videos. You probably can't see this. Let's put this, how can I put this on the other screen here? Let's put this up here. Okay, so this is what I have right now. I don't want it to show any of their pictures or videos, so hopefully that won't happen. I don't think that it will. But it says it's looking, so I don't know how long this takes. Hopefully not too long. So I'm going to set this over here, sort of to the side, because I just don't want to risk someone's personal information popping up here. It says that it's looking for photos and videos, but I'm not seeing any yet. But at least it's a step in the right direction. There is touch functionality on this phone, and it's got some sort of communication with the computer, but it's not. Oh, it's finding. Okay, so I got 100 items. Okay, so I'll show you this real quick. See that? We got 370, 430. So it is actually finding the multimedia on the phone. So how long do I want to hold this thing in my hand, and do I want to chance whether it's going to turn on again later on? That is the question. So should I do the import now? That could be time consuming. But in any case, the good news is we actually were able to get this thing connected. And let's close that. There we go. And so I'm going to call this success, guys. And although not always the case, sometimes putting this through the ultrasonic cleaner will solve a problem. And on top of that, we also know that the second pin from the bottom on the inside for the LG G5, if you're looking at the board from that direction, that is definitely associated with touch, because when that pin was not connected, I had zero touch functionality, although I did have a display. So I've learned something, you know, because again, any information we could get on these models where people don't really release the plans, you know, the schematics or anything like that, is going to be helpful. So I think I'm going to see how many photos we are waiting for here. Oh boy, we got 1,400. Okay, so this is going to, we got 1,900. This is a lot of photos. I hope I'm not getting texted. Let's see, what did Wayne say? Tip for the future: you don't need touch if you have a phone with OTG and working connection with PC, just use mouse. Yeah, and you know, I was thinking that might be an option, and I have one for micro USB. I don't have one on hand for USB-C, so definitely very valid tip. I'm also not completely sure about what the communication is with the USB-C port, but absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Great tip for anyone out there. You should have an OTG for micro USB. I have one on the way for USB-C, And I think I've got something similar for iPhones as well, but if I remember, it might work through Bluetooth. But good call. To actually dump data with mouse connected, you can install an FTP server on the phone to dump data over Wi-Fi. Okay, even better. There you go. So now here's a question for you, and I think that one of the problems with that, and I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but if the phone is not set up to, I guess you could, right? So it will still communicate even if the USB communication for file transfers is turned off. Because if that's the case, then yeah, there's our answer. We plug that in and connect the mouse, and away we go. So good call. So we have how many? Okay, so we have 2,332 items selected, and I'm glad I moved this off the screen because in fact it is showing me a bunch of people's pictures. So we're going to import those. And are you going to give me a progress bar? Because I don't want to sit here and hold this forever. It is not showing me. Oh, yeah, it is. So I actually have. Okay, this isn't showing any photos, right? So I've actually got a progress bar here that's showing me that we have. Well, it was showing me some photos. Oh, yeah, here at the top. Oh, you can't see it. So up here at the top, it's telling me that it's importing these items. So this is going to be good. And I'm going to hold on to this until that's finished just because I don't want a chance having to go through this again. I think we're good. You know, this phone might actually have some functionality. I don't think it's going to be usable for very long, but we shall see. So let's talk about some micro soldering equipment because now we have time to do that as well. Yes, this will work. In fact, I only know Sony devices have OTG blocked on lock screen, but it reactivates itself if you leave the mouse connected and force reboot. Okay, interesting. Good to know. Thank you for the info. That will be helpful because I've run into several of these, and I actually did an OTG on what was it? I think it was a Samsung, I want to say, but it was a micro USB, and I just didn't. Should have thought of it, but I'll show you guys something here real quick. Oh, boy, this is going to be tricky. I don't want this thing to disconnect while we're transferring data. Let me find. You know what would work is a rubber band. If I have one handy. I don't have a rubber band handy. If I did, that would solve my problem, and I haven't got enough slack. I'm on like a dog in a short leash here. So, okay, good to know. What was the other thing? So regarding micro soldering equipment, I think if you're interested, and it's cool if you are, I think if we do this, let's see, display capture. Oh, let's close that. There we go. So this is one that I think is decent, and you'll probably don't buy this, by the way. And someone else, I think Louis Rossmann and several other people have addressed this topic before. But don't go onto a Chinese website and find an item that sells for 200 around the 250 range and buy it for 80 because these are definitely counterfeits. They're not going to last very long. And when they break, there's no way to repair them. So you can't send it in and say, hey, can you fix this? Because no, they don't work on that kind of stuff. You should expect to pay around $260-ish, $250 or so. Allspec has them. eBay. I think I've even got links on some of my videos to the equipment that we use and other things that we suggest if people, don't want to really shell out a ton of money and you just want to kind of get started with something. Maybe you don't even know how far you're going to go with repair, but let's go to the website because I've kind of organized this stuff and I've been adding. Am I not bookmarked in here? So I put this on the website so it'd be easy for me to find, honestly, because people ask me, hey, which one of these do you recommend? I go, just go to the website because I put everything there so you can see it. So if you're interested and want to kind of categorize these, according to cost versus value and so forth. But if you go into here to micro soldering equipment, I've got most of the stuff that I use listed on here. And, I was in the same position at one point where I just didn't want to spend a lot of money. And you should certainly be able to say, hey, this is making me money, so I can justify it. This is the one I ultimately went with, the FM203, mainly because I was looking for the micro tweezers, which I don't really use as often as I thought I would. I think that in many cases where I thought I would like to have the micro tweezers, hot air does the job just as well, sometimes better. And you definitely, absolutely have to have hot air. You don't absolutely need to have micro tweezers to survive. But if you do, this is kind of the minimum that you're going to need to get started. And then, of course, you have to buy the tweezers separately. Now, this is the other one. This is the 951 for $242. So this is pretty much like wherever I can find the lowest prices, I'll put them on the website because, you know, why pay more than you need to? And then this right here is what I was talking about. This is a super cheap micro soldering station for someone who's probably a hobbyist, you know, maybe doing larger projects where you're not working with things that are so small. You can actually do a lot of stuff with this, and it's $55. But if you're going to be doing TriStars and other ICs, it's going to struggle, and it's not going to give you consistent heat. It's going to take a long time to turn on. The tips don't change out easily. You've literally got to turn it off and get like a oven mitt so you can take the tip off unless you want to wait for it to cool down. So I don't really recommend this, but this is, again, you know, just for hobbyists, that kind of thing. This dude right here, $269, I think is pretty decent. I am offline because OBS is terrible. Okay, are we back? Well, that's neat. All right, are we back? We are not back. Well, I'm gonna have a 40-second lag before I know whether or not you guys can see me. So I'm just gonna continue, and then you can tell me where to start off from, or where we left off. So I do want to look at this other phone real quick. Let's see, was it the iPhone 6? No, it was not the iPhone 6. It was a different one. In fact, it is sitting right in front of me. We are still not back. Okay, why does this thing say that I have good stream health, and yet I don't see on my monitor that anything's happening? YouTube. You know what's funny is when I stop the data transfer on the LG, that's when the problems appear to have started. And let's see, let's get this under the microscope. Oops. There, nope. We don't want that either. Here's what we want. It looks like I'm still not there. Well, that's neat. Okay, I don't know what's going on. It shows that I'm streaming here, and I have no idea if you guys can see this or not because I don't. It says live, stream health, so what's going on? Someone put something in the chat if you can actually see me, because I assume that you can't. So I don't want to proceed much further until I know that we're live. So let's message Nate and see. Am I offline on your end? I can finally see. Okay, the video for the soldering stations was frozen. Well, that's great. So you guys can hear me the whole time. That's neat. I don't know what's going on here. On my monitor, it's showing me that the stream is just buffering. So I'm going to reload that page. And the strange thing was when I told the data transfer to disconnect from the phone that I was backing up, that's when everything went goofy. So I think I just need a second computer to do things. So let's see if we... Okay, so now we have video and it looks terrible, right? YouTube, you're killing me. Okay, I think that's halfway as decent, right? Still choppy. All right, so hopefully this will come back to normal. If not, you guys can tell me and I'll edit out the end of the video. But I did want to show you this. This is an iPhone. Let's see, is my camera all out of whack here? This is an iPhone 8 that, right? iPhone 8. So I don't know what happened with this thing. But I was told that the phone got dropped. Okay, that was it. Phone got dropped, doesn't work anymore. Also, the tech that looked at this before me said that the shield behind the processor was not attached. So during the physical damage that took place to this phone, the shield actually popped itself off the board, and for whatever reasons, he said that he was having a hard time keeping it attached. I said, well, don't. Be sure to take that off. So the thing about these shields, when they have something that causes them to come off the board, we certainly don't want this big metal plate floating around right on top of this stuff, right? Because there's a good chance that this conductive material is going to cause some problems. So I said, look, unplug the battery, take out the shield, send it in, which is what he did, and I'll take a look at it. And also, I got a very small inductor that was included with the shipment that said this had fell off the board near the battery terminal? No, near the wireless charging, I think he said. So I went in here, and look at this, guys. For one thing, we have something here that is completely gone. So this big cap right above the Trinity coil, if that's what we're still calling it, is just gone. Like, it's gone. And I want to say when I looked at ZXW that this is related to the audio, the speaker amp, I think. I'll have to go back and double check in just a second. But we're missing this completely. So this big cap, not a problem. We could certainly replace that one. If I remember, also one side goes to VCC main, and there's nothing shorted right now. That's the interesting thing. So we don't have, that quite common short on VCC main caused by, a number of different things to where the phone won't work and it's drawing energy. It actually looks like something's happening when we plug it in, but I don't want to leave it plugged in until we kind of assess what's really going on here a little better. And as we move down the housing, oh, and by the way, here's another interesting thing. If you didn't already know this, it's quite frustrating. So this tape that Apple puts, the big black piece of tape that goes over the area where the battery connects and all that stuff, that tape is made of some sort of coating and then a metal substance on the inside that is in fact conductive. So if you peel this stuff back and you look at the bottom side of it, there's kind of a coating there, but beyond that coating, there's a metallic type of surface that is definitely conductive. And if you get this stuff to push down hard enough on top of anything that's hot, you bridge it to ground immediately, because that is basically, the only thing I can tell is that they use this tape to connect ground from here to here. And I don't know why you would do that, but there's multiple areas on the phone where they use this tape to kind of bridge one area that's going to ground to another metallic area in order, I guess, to make it ground. But for whatever reason, when this stuff starts getting destroyed, you just want to get it out of the way, because if you have a stray piece down in here, bridging two things together, that's going to cause you some problems. I had one situation where I thought the phone spontaneously, ended up causing a short, and it was in fact because of this metallic crap. So I don't know why they did that. I'm sure they have their reasons. But anyways, moving right along here, if we go up the side of the phone, we can see we have a bit more trauma here over by right above the processor. So one, we've got another missing inductor, and I don't know what type of fall would cause the phone to have enough impact to literally break the shield off. If I don't know better, and not knowing better, I would almost guess that maybe this phone was crushed under something, like maybe it was run over by a car. Maybe it was in a car and it fell out and hit the freeway at 80 miles an hour. I don't know, but there's quite a bit of damage to this thing. So it's curious that it was so significant that it caused the shield to pop off. I'm not sure. I assume this is from physical damage that made this come out. Same with this dude right here. But it's broken out of the underfill. So again, what I would have thought if no one had told me that this was a phone that fell, I would have thought that this was a phone that was crushed, because you'd have to have quite a bit of pressure to kind of make these things pop off the way that they did. Interestingly, over here, if we look at this area, we also have a ball of solder that looks like, either was stray or more likely was generated by excessive heat. So that's my guess, is that something on here got hot, and even this doesn't really look healthy. In fact, it's not even attached. Look at that. It's not even attached to the board. It's just kind of floating around here. So before I pull this out of the frame, we'll take a look at Easy Draw real quick just to see what these are out of curiosity. You can see that this thing also physically damaged. So this has just been torn up, and I suppose possible that it was caused by impact, but I'm a lot more leaning towards, hey, this is probably something that maybe got ran over by a car or a truck. Maybe it fell on the freeway and then got ran over. Man, you missed the whole show. Had people there. That's all right, man. Hey, Nate, if you're busy, that is a good thing, right? So let's see if we can get a screen capture of Easy Draw. And we'll take a look at what these are, and then I'm going to open it up. And where's my easy draw shortcut? Where are you? Is it on my other desktop? Okay. So let's open this and go back here, and hopefully it will open. Nope, it opens in the wrong screen. Okay, that's all right. So let's do this, and we'll try to figure out what we're working with here. Okay, so let's go to Intel or Qualcomm. Okay, so we have, let's see, we have a missing capacitor all the way down here. So this is completely gone. And I think we actually want to look at the Qualcomm, because this isn't going to tell us anything, is it? No, it's not. So we need the Qualcomm version. Okay, so once again, we have this C4910 ground on one side, and the other side is going to... Oh, that doesn't tell me anything, does it? Oh, all right, Nate, I see your frustration here. It's not giving me the name of the circuit that we're working with. So let's see if ZXW does any better on this one. I'm convinced that having both versions of this board view software makes sense if you're going to be working on a lot of phones, because they kind of overlap with what they give you. And really, for what is it, $5 a month or something, $10 a month? Okay, what is this? Oh, here we go. So we want this guy to be up here so you can see it. And let's see what we're looking at here. Kind of looking through a bunch of wires and stuff here. Okay, so Qualcomm is the only one we're going to get very much information from. And let's blow this up. So we are looking at this dude, which is going to speaker amp. So this is PP speaker amp BOT or 8OT V boost. So that might be kind of important. And then up here at the top, the other affected area on this thing so far, because we definitely have a long ways to go on this, is going to be this inductor here, which is also speaker amp. And then we have this little dude right here, which this is NFC, it says. So I wouldn't think that this would be critical, but the fact that there's solder coming out here is interesting. So something here may have gotten hot. Hold on a second. I'm getting an important phone call. Am I offline again? Yeah, I'm streaming right now, I think. I thought you were calling to tell me I wasn't. That's weird because I could see myself. Are you guys seeing me? Because Nate says he's not. It's showing up on my monitor from my channel. Okay. Text me if not, because I'm seeing it on this end, which means YouTube is broadcasting it. But, okay. Thanks. See ya. All right, so I think we're still here. Let's get back to ZXW. Okay, so we have this big cap here, and that's going to NFC also. And what else do we have that is broken? Oh, and then we have this dude right below it, this inductor, which is going to NFC boost. So you can kind of see a pattern here. A lot of this stuff is connected to NFC or speaker amp and has been physically damaged. And again, I don't know if that was because of the drop, but I want to dig a little deeper. This one down here is VDD main, so that's important. I know I said VCC earlier, but that was incorrect. So let's take a look inside of this phone. And what I'm really curious about right off the top is, oh, my camera froze. That's neat. Let's see if we can, maybe I unplug the camera. That could be the problem. So I'm going to pull this board out because before I go too far in the way of committing to a repair, I want to know, let's see, we'll have to redo the, oh, let me go back to my comments here so I can see what you guys are saying. It's just a challenge. Okay, so we're back. All right. So now my camera's frozen, so let's go ahead and re-add this again. I guess I need to get a better hub. There's a problem with my USB. Oh, we don't want that. We want this. Okay, so there we go. Now, are you going to focus for me? Focus. Come on, you can do it. Ah, that's annoying. This camera's just not going to focus, no matter where I put it. Yep. There we go. Okay. So let's get this thing out of the housing. Well, the SIM card does not want to move. Oh, you know what? I think that... Oh, not that. And not that. I want to say the SIM card tray may have also broken off the board. So, chances of this becoming a working phone are minimal. Yeah, I think we've actually got the SIM card tray, I believe. Or is that a bend in the board? No, this thing just looks terrible. Okay, let's see if we can get the SIM card tray out, because it's kind of in there sideways. Yeah, it doesn't even want to eject. That's neat. Oh boy. Okay, so this is going to be one of those things like the Galaxy S7, where somehow the SIM card tray has gotten bent inside of the phone, and you can't take apart the phone until you get the tray out, and you can't take the tray out without getting the phone taken apart. So this is kind of a catch-22. I don't think this is going to end up being something that I want to bore you with today, but I'm going to have to figure out a way to get this tray out, because otherwise we can't pull the board. And I think I'm going to cut to one of the first lessons here that I learned from someone a long time ago. And I believe that this is going to be, part of the focus when I do my phone repair trainings is not only to learn how to become competent at performing repairs, but a big part of this business is also understanding how to be profitable, because, can every phone in the world be fixed? No, a lot of them can. But there are quite a few that fall into a gray area of how deep do I want to go before I determine exactly how committed my customer is. Are they thinking, hey, I sent this phone in, and if it's going to cost $100, then I'll go ahead and pay to get it fixed. But if it's more than that, I'm not going to. So when we start looking at things like this, I'm immediately wondering if data recovery is going to be something that they would be interested in, because if not, just by looking at this, just by the top of the phone so far, without going any further, I'm concerned that when we get on the other side, we're going to find things are a lot worse, and that pursuing this as being a repair for a working phone, probably not going to be a good time investment. So until I talk to the customer, I think I'm going to leave this one right here and find out what their intentions are, and how committed they are to this. And I thought that they were pretty much set on getting it fixed, because they actually paid someone to replace the housing for them, and that kind of introduces another variable, because a lot of these aftermarket housings are close, but they're not perfect. So we could do a lot of work here to try to get this thing going, and then find out a lot of the functions are not present anymore, and in fact that this won't be a working phone. So I think I'm going to stop right here, contact the customer, and see what they want to do. We like being bored. Okay, yeah, I know. Hopefully I'm just noise in the background for some of you guys while you're going about your day-to-day. But I certainly appreciate y'all jumping on here. I plan to do a lot more streaming in the near future, and I've got some videos that I will actually have time to edit and get put together. And yeah, I think that's it for this. And a few of you I think I'm going to contact offline. But I hope to be back very soon with some more streaming. I want to get back to doing this at least a couple times a week. And I think we're going to quit right there, because I don't have anything else on my desk besides a long screw damage, which I'm also waiting for authorization on before I dig into that one. So time to go pick up some more phones. And if I have something really cool that comes across this afternoon, because I've got to pick up some repairs that are going out from other stores, maybe we'll even do a second stream. So again, seeing you all again, and I will talk to you very soon. Have a great week.